We're with Scott Terry, the owner and artist at the Tattoo Parlour and Lounge in the King of Prussia Mall. Scott, how long have you been tattooing for?
Almost 20 years. Got started right up the road in Norristown at Norristown Tattoo. That's where I did my apprenticeship. And now I'm back in the area after 20 years.
And where did you do your apprenticeship at?
Norristown Tattoo with Shane Muntz.
So I know everybody's going to ask this question, and I'm going to get this out of the way right off the bat because this is actually one of the things that caught my attention to you. Why the King of Prussia Mall?
Basically just convenience. It was closer to home. I worked at a tattoo studio that ended up closing here in the mall. I talked to the mall management and got this little place set up for myself.
As you can see, this is a phenomenal looking shop. What would you say is your style of tattoo?
I really gravitate towards any realism. Color realism or black and gray realism. Those are my two go-tos. Although I do love anything that's like Disney and animated. My upbringing, my whole childhood was based on watching cartoons and stuff. And so I really like any kind of new school or animated type styles.
Now, when you started out though, did you start out in that style as well? Or was that something you worked up to?
I've always drawn in that style, but I've found that most people, I missed the boat. Back in the 80s, people were getting a lot of new school. By the time that I was tattooing, people weren't looking for new school anymore. They were looking more for realism, black and gray realism, or like the shop that I was working at, we were just doing flash stuff that was on the walls. You walked in, you picked it off the wall, and we put it on you.
So you just said, about walk-ins and stuff like that. Do you do walk-ins, or is this by appointment only?
I try to be by appointment only. I do accept walk-ins if I have availability to take them. I find that in the mall, most people, when they find out that I have a $100 minimum, they turn around and walk right away.
Which I think is normal for most shops though.
I do too. I don't understand it.
So with you doing realism, how do you approach like a unique style that would maybe be brought into you?
That's a tough question. Usually what ends up happening in today's day and age, somebody brings in their cell phone, they're showing you a picture of someone else's tattoo. So I usually just use that as a point of reference to design something that I think that the client's going to be happy with based on what they've shown me. But I don't want to copy that tattoo. I'm not going to just print that tattoo out and trace it and then slap it on my client, because I just feel like that's just stealing someone else's artwork.
Now, how do you keep up with new styles and trends?
I try not to. I really don't want to keep up with new styles and trends. I think that if you get a trendy tattoo, you're going to regret it. A tattoo should be as unique as you are. And if you're following trends, then you're just going to be like everybody else that's out there. And why get a tattoo then?
The tribal tramp stamp.
Tribals, the tramp stamps, the right now it's all the trendy little fine line tattoos that are just going to look terrible in 20 years. And everybody's going to want to come in and get them covered up or fixed.
Now, for your work here, I know you just said about the $100 minimum, right? Do you do hourly or do you do by the piece?
There's been a lot of debate about that with different artists and how best to figure out how to price something out. For me, I take into consideration how detailed the piece is, how large the piece is, and where on the body it's going to go. As we all know, there's certain spots on the body that are tougher to tattoo. They're not as convenient as an arm or a leg. And once I take those things into consideration, I break it down into how much time I think I will need for that tattoo, and then I charge by the hour.
Here at your shop, obviously cash is king, but do you take other forms of pay?
Actually, hardly anybody pays with cash anymore. Everybody pays with credit cards or some sort of debit card.
Hey guys, if you like this video and you feel like I'm offering value, make sure you smash that like and subscribe button. Thanks. Have you ever brought in an apprentice?
No, I honestly, I wouldn't be opposed to it if I found the right person, but I find that most people don't even make it through their apprenticeships. I've worked at various studios that have various apprentices that have applied and have worked and have usually cut out, left, disappeared, didn't show up anymore. They think that they're going to be tattooing the first day that they walk through the door, and that's just not what an apprenticeship is.
What advice would you give to somebody that wants to get into the industry?
Do your research, learn about the industry and draw your ass off. I can't tell you how many people come in and ask about an apprenticeship or do you accept apprentices or etc. And they don't even have a portfolio to show you. They have no drawings, nothing, not even pictures on their phone of a drawing that they've done. So I don't understand what they're gonna think that they're gonna walk in and just start tattooing without ever having drawn anything.
draw,
Yeah.
and draw some more.
I mean, other artists could learn to do that. They sit around the shop a lot of times where I've seen other studios that I've worked at where they don't have any appointments. What they're doing is they're just sitting on their phones instead of picking up a pencil and a piece of paper and drawing something. It definitely works wonders.
So before you got into tattooing, did you have any type of art background?
Yeah, I mean, I've always drawn as a kid, and your parents always tell you how good you are, but you don't want to believe it because that's what the parents' job is. And then I ended up going to school in Orlando, Florida for special effects makeup because I really wanted to break into like the horror movie scene, but it just never happened.
What school is that? Full Sail?
No, it was Joe Blasco's School of Makeup Artistry. And it was right there off of International Drive in Orlando, Florida.
Go back to your apprenticeship real quick. How long was your apprenticeship for?
Well, I kind of had a different type of apprenticeship. At the time, the internet was just starting to go, and there was a website out there, I can't even remember the name of it, and they had like a classifieds area, and you could, post jobs and stuff on there. And there was a studio, Norristown Tattoo, that was looking to hire a tattoo artist. So I reached out to them and showed them some of my drawings, and I was living in North Carolina at the time. I was planning on moving to Philadelphia, and they said, when I move here, contact them. I met with the owner. He liked me, so he hired me, set me into the studio. I was not apprenticing very long before I started tattooing. It was almost like a working apprenticeship.
Right.
There was very little time between when I started and...
Right, so you kind of had the skill.
Mm-hmm.
You just needed to have the skill of tattooing,
right.
Needle tap, all that stuff.
Yep. Learn how... The safety and cleanliness part, I had no idea, what went into it. I could draw, I just needed to be taught how to do that on skin.
And that's
changed. Do it properly.
Dramatically over the years.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have an Instagram? I
have Instagram for the studio, the Tattoo Parlour and Lounge, and my own personal Instagram, which is Scott Does Tattoos.
Now, you did talk about, finding tattoo shops or work that was in published magazines, stuff like that. Have you ever been published in any magazines?
Oh, yeah. For a while, I felt like the only way to really legitimize myself would be to be published in magazines. So I got to work and I started sending my stuff out to magazines. And I got published in quite a few. For like a year straight, I was in a magazine a month or so. Once I had accomplished that, I just kind of started to back off of it. Now I don't even think anybody reads magazines.
Yeah, there's still a couple out there, but you're right. I mean, usually it's online stuff at this point.
Right.
Which is a good segue for us. How do you feel as though the internet or the TV shows have impacted the industry? I'd
say most of it's positive because it gets the tattoos into people's heads in their living rooms, where the tattoos weren't really there before. People didn't know them. Now it's become so mainstream, it's hard to find anybody who doesn't have a tattoo. But it also makes people think that anybody could be a tattoo artist, or it gives them just a little bit of information and then they think they're an expert on tattoos and that they know more than the tattoo artist does. Maybe in some cases, because I think there's a lot of tattoo artists that just pop up and open studios without ever having the knowledge. It's got its good points and its bad points. Tattoo artists as a whole, when I started, we were kind of like the outcasts, the nerdy kids in school, the kids that drew and played Dungeons and Dragons or skateboarded or whatever. Now there's like cliques within this clique. And it's like there's the cool guys and the not cool guys. And it kind of makes you sick.
Which brings me to my next question, actually. What do you think of tattoo conventions?
I don't like them anymore. I used to enjoy them. They used to be fun. You used to be able to talk to the guy in the next booth. Now you get a booth and the guy like next to you, there's like this competition or, there's this attitude or this ego, and they're just not fun anymore.
I had a tattoo artist, Justin French from Ennsville, that talked about that. He said that he wished more tattoo artists would be supportive and offer constructive criticism instead of criticizing.
Yeah.
I'm not an artist.
Or just even support one another.
Right.
Like, you talk about social media. I don't know how many artists that I follow. And if I see something I like, I'll click on it. And some of these artists follow me back. And I don't think they've ever liked a single thing I've ever posted. I don't think my work is that bad, but it's just that I feel like if they like something that I've done, then they're supporting somebody else and they might lose a customer to me, maybe. I don't know. I think it's crazy. People that I've worked with won't even like my stuff.
I wonder sometimes, though, because of so many shops being open, that it's actually created that attitude where it's, you know, everybody's fighting for work right now. Tattoos have become so mainstream that so many more people are getting tattooed these days. There really shouldn't be anybody fighting for work.
No, and I read a lot, especially with like marketing books and stuff like that. And I read one where this guy said if there's 3 pizza places on a street, open up a 4th one. Because if 3 pizza places can and are open doing business, there's enough business that a 4th one can exist. So if there's this many tattoo studios, there got to be enough clients to get us all through.
So how do you handle client expectations when they come into the shop? And I'm talking about the people that are trying to pack like 100 lines into a little postage stamp kind of deal.
I tell them the truth. Honesty is the best policy. I'll show them examples. I'll show them how tattoos heal. I have pictures of some of my clients' tattoos that they got back when they were 18, 20 years old. Now they're 40 and what they look like, and tell them, you know, this is just how it is. This is human skin. It's not paper. It's not a canvas, you know, in the regular sense of the word. So it's never going to hold the ink like you think. So that's why I despise these tiny little fine line tattoos.
Is there anything I didn't ask you today that I should have asked you or should have brought up about not only you or your shop?
I don't think so. I think you've done a pretty good job. And, you know, I feel as if anybody has any questions, they should reach out to me personally anyway so that I can help them out.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not the guy to be asking. I'm not, you know, the expert by any means. I'm just an enthusiast that loves tattoos and wants to bring as many artists as I can into the forefront. I appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you coming in. If you like this video, click on this link right here.